I remember once or twice in the pastoring when we began to sing about the blood.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Of course, I've said anything that's fire of the Holy Ghost, if it's not built upon the sacrifice of the blood, it's wildflower.
That's right.
I said that. I said to these from pulpit, you know, sometimes you're quite radical, you know, and maybe people don't take you serious.
Yeah.
But to me, if it's just emotionalism, if it's just that, if it's not based upon the foundation of the blood.
That's right.
Like I remember saying to my dad when Brother Post came in at 48, I said, we're right back to the original, that's Acts 2:38.
Yeah.
But I said, but oh no, there wouldn't have been Acts, there wouldn't have been Calvary.
No, that's right. That's right. Yeah.
Calvary precipitated Pentecost.
Yeah.
But there had been no Pentecost, there wasn't a Calvary.
No.
This is an apostolic voice. Hi there, my friends. I'm Chad. This is an apostolic voice. This is part 2 of the interview with Brother McNair. Hope you enjoyed the first one. If you've not seen the first one before, you can find it here on the page. And this is part 2. Continue on hearing some more of the great stories and the influence that Brother McNair had and the connections that he had. I hope you enjoy this. God bless you.
And so you mentioned, you said that when God called you, when you were praying, when God called you, that He gave you a vision. You said that you saw a vision?
Yes.
Can you share? Can you tell me that, or is
Yes,
that something
I never told it for 30-some years.
Yeah.
We were coming back from a conference, and Brother Post and Brother John Tompkins, I was pastoring in Hoyt.
Yeah.
And I went up with them, and they dropped me off. And I told them, after 30-some years, I told them, I never told it because it's so sacred to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
But what I saw is if I was on the platform, and there was here was an aisle and a set of seats, you know, and then a central, and then here was an aisle here, and down that aisle, I don't know how many, I didn't count them.
Yeah.
Coming dressed in white.
Yeah.
As if they were answering my altar call.
Oh, okay.
Now, I've never seen that where there's going to be, and I've never had I never was a very successful evangelist, really. Although I wanted to be, but I never was very. I mean, I have to apologize. Really, I pastored and I taught.
Yeah.
And I preached, but I never. I wasn't one of those. I couldn't. My statistics are very limited. And but anyway, but Sister Burns, Brother Burns had died, and he always had a movie camera.
Yeah.
And I remember one time I was traveling with him when he was home in a furlough, and we were traveling up the St. John River somewhere there. It was wintertime, a real nice snapping winter day.
Yeah. And
here was a deer right in the side of the road.
Yeah.
And Brother Burns, he thought he had his movie camera. He reached back, he forgot his movie camera.
Yeah.
And I can still see that deer, great big snowbank, and that deer just went.
Yeah, right up over.
Well, anyway, Sister Burns, they had a little old mobile home up here on Brown's Trailer Park.
Yeah.
And so Sister Burns, had some of Brother Burns' old film.
Yeah.
And so he took the services for Brother Sisson when he was on furlough. When Brother Burns was in Ceylon, he went up there, all Brother Sisson was on furlough.
Okay.
And he took, and I didn't realize that he started some churches there too.
Yeah.
But anyway, here was a picture where there was a choir. They're all dressed in white.
Yeah.
Just robed in white.
Yeah.
And Brother Burns had gone to the mission field after I had prayed that. Now, I'm not saying he went to the mission field because I prayed to send forth laborers. I'm not saying that at all.
Right. No.
You know. But anyway, that's the only. Just when I saw that, and I don't know where that disappeared. It'd be nice to. I don't know. Brother Burns, she died, of course, you know. And, and one of her daughters died, and so on.
Yes,
and Bobby, the oldest boy, it was awful sad, you know. He went bad, you know, and he died not too many years ago in a special care home up here.
Yeah.
But anyway, but that was all in white.
Yeah.
Which I guess was customary over there in that place, in that area of India.
Yeah.
To
that's really neat, eh? Because that's
white robes. Anyway, that was my vision, and then I went after I stopped in preaching in Bath, pastoring. I went to work in St. John, of course.
Yeah.
And I didn't know whether I wanted to go to the ministry or not. And Brother Jake said there's a certain preacher's base, and He wasn't there very many years, but he thought his work was done. But in those days, they didn't stay very long
Yeah.
in churches. And so this fellow apparently wasn't doing so good. Brother Jake said, but he's not leaving. So, and I didn't know whether I wanted to pastor anymore or not. I'd been 2 years pastoring in Bath, see,
Okay.
and so I just didn't know what I was going to do. And so anyway, I went to St. John and went to work at the convenience store and became a junior clerk and passed my probation and
Yeah.
just had a good future in the company.
Yeah.
But anyway, oh yes, I go full gospel assembly. Now there was a little Pentecostal holiness church on one street there, upstairs in the auditorium, and then there was a Murray Street Mission up where Howard Johnson's, where now some other company has taken it over, or my son's been there for 30 years.
Okay.
Anyway, the Murray Street Mission, it was there before, but it was extreme demonstration type of thing. And my uncle, by marriage, he and I both had got work in the convenience store. He was in the meat department. I was in the general groceries.
Yeah.
And he was there, and and so their little their Murray Street Mission. So they wanted him to pastor. But so it's full gospel assembly. Sister, they were independent, and they didn't make an issue. But they converted under Anderson
Oh, okay.
in Chicago.
Yeah.
And so they were Jesus' name in baptism.
Yeah.
And so I went. That's where naturally, well, the Mother Beasley and Mother Post, and they come out of that church, you know.
Yeah.
And so I started. That's where I went to church.
Yeah.
And so they had me eventually teaching on Sunday school, and then they had me preaching one night a week.
Yeah.
And I was at the altar, and they started in 24, but this was in about 1952 and 53, and they didn't have much of an after service, but they always had a service that carried on until somebody got blessed. They call it blessing. That people started getting blessed.
Yeah.
That was their capstone. You know. Preaching wasn't the main thing. Getting blessed,
blessing.
Pentecostal blessing. So anyway, they had me preaching, and I could tell you there's all kinds of. And the young people there, there was four or five families of us, but anyway, they had me started preaching. And what I was coming to this was one night in after service, and I was with the last one at the altar.
Yeah.
And so Sister Davis, Carol, the main one, they were twins, but they were identical. One was Susie was short, and the other lady was tall. She was the main dominant. But anyway, make a long story short, she come over and whisper and say, "That's your brother, stay right there." In other words, just to kind of keep the altar service.
Yeah.
But I had a vision. I had a vision.
Okay.
And that prompted me. That was after about a year of working at the convenience store and preaching for them. And and so I decided to go back in the ministry.
Okay.
And Brother Jakes, they used to have men preachers, Brother Post, and Brother Jakes, he was down. They had him down preaching.
Yeah.
And maybe baptized. They used to baptize in Lily Lake, you know, and they'd get men to baptize. And so I don't know why Brother Jakes was there. I don't remember much. All I remember back at the old Charlotte Street Mission, upstairs it had been a kind of an opera place, but it was they had upstairs what they called Charlotte Street Mission.
Yeah.
And I mentioned to Brother Jakes that back at the door before we went down the stairs, go back on the street, that I might go back in ministry.
Yeah.
Well, Brother Jakes, I got to know him. Brother Larson was the same kind of man. They were very backward until you get to know them, you know.
Yeah.
And so he just looked at me. He didn't give me an encouragement much, you know.
No.
And which the same I did with the call boys when they wanted to go into ministry. I just said, "What's up to you?" You know.
Yeah.
I'm not going to influence you. You're on your own.
Yeah.
And so anyway, I decided to go back in the ministry. Said we're going to have Brother McNair preach on a Sunday night and take up an offering for him.
Yeah.
And she had I was making $38 and something a week for a 50-hour week at the convenience store.
Yeah.
As a junior clerk. And she said, and I was actually living in a downstairs flat at 131 Street where they had lived when they first went to St. John.
Oh, okay.
And they owned the building. And so she said, "You can still live there, and we'll pay you the same amount that you were getting at the grocery store, and you work with us," and so forth. So, and Brother Post, he was in Sussex, and he wanted to kind of circulate a bit, and he wanted me to come back to Sussex and to kind of assist him here.
Oh, okay.
And then, Cecil McKillop, he was pastoring in Hoyt. And he came in the minister and said he was leaving Hoyt. He said, "Why don't you go to Hoyt to pastor?" Well, I just let that go 1 year out the other.
Yeah.
Well, the Davis sisters didn't see the Hoyt church had started because the ladies from the Hoyt had been down to the full gospel and got converted or influenced by the Davis sisters.
Yeah.
And so they were back. That was before the district was formed like it is now. They were more a supervisor.
Oh, okay.
They'd send preachers out like that. See. And
Yeah.
I could tell you, I won't say all this, but anyway, in this respect, they were, we send you out to Hoyt.
Yeah.
And and then John Min, they had started the church in Stuyak, and the next year in '53 they were in New Glasgow.
Yeah.
And so I forget, and I guess Brother Jake's or whatever in Isla or Charlotte and whatever, what happened? I was a friend of John's,
Yeah.
Min. And so I still remember getting in the SMT bus, pulling up off St. Street, old King Square, heading, I was going back in the ministry, boy.
Yeah.
And so I went down there. And so when I went down, I got down there, and Brother Min and Paul Burney had a little apartment there while they had meetings in Glasgow.
Yeah.
And while I was there, I got a call from Sister Davis. Brother McNair, don't think anymore about going to Hoyt. We're going to send Raymond Beasley out. He wants to go in the ministry. So we're sending him out there. Because I wasn't planning to go there anyhow. See.
Yeah.
But anyway, when the night that they preached and I got the offering was actually almost 3 weeks' wages, over $100.
Really?
And Brother Post, he was kind of and I wanted to, actually what I wanted to do was come with Brother Post here.
Yeah.
But I went there, and Johnny Kladowicz, his parents were the chefs in New York City.
Yeah.
And he was a machinist downtown New York City,
Yeah.
shops. And so, but now he was a fellow that would meet the missionaries, and he was an eligible bachelor.
Yeah.
And he stayed with his parents,
Okay.
and so forth. And he was up there, and so now he were kind of a little bit friendly.
Yeah.
And so the part he came up to, I was supposed to see how they could relate in the ministry.
Yeah.
And so his name was Johnny Koladowicz. He was in connection with the family of Stanley Chambers and those fellows. There were a type of some connection there. I don't know what Koladowicz, whether it was Czechoslovakian or whatever it was.
Sure.
But anyway, he came up he had a month holiday from his machine shop.
Yeah.
And so we went down, and he went down, and then they sent us down to the southern part of Nova Scotia. He had a brand new '52 Buick. Anyway, I preached over when finally before they left to go. They had it over just across the bridge there in New Glasgow, upstairs auditorium and I preached that. I remember Psalm 20.
Yeah.
We set up banners in his name.
Okay.
And then from that, we went down to the river, down to the place, baptism. And the sister, years later, she mentioned it, and I got the picture. And John Min, I preached at baptism.
Yeah.
And Johnny Kladowicz, I was there, and there was the bridge up there, people watching the baptism. And so I preached, and this was 13 baptized, September the 13th, 1953.
Yeah.
13 baptized.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, so John and I went with, I don't know how it worked out. Anyway, here I was driving along and I was already married. The wife had to stay with my folks and her folks for a while. We went to Kentville, and I don't know why we didn't, anyway, whether we looked for something there, and I don't know, the detail here is really very strange.
Yeah.
I don't know why. Anyway, we started going across from, what do they call it, Kentville, to Chester.
Okay.
On the South Shore.
Yeah.
It's about maybe 30 or 40 miles through, and it was a gravel road, and he had never had a bit. He thought that Bruick was going to shake to pieces,
Yeah.
Well, anyway, we went down there, and eventually we landed in Bridgewater, and we got this. I don't know. I guess he must have been the leader. I don't know how it happened. Really, I can't say to this day. But we got this place just outside as you're coming in the old highway way back then, 53.
Yeah.
And there was this building there, and it was a house, but it had connected in the back was like a warehouse.
Okay.
And so somehow we got that building.
Okay.
And it was just, and all it was just the rafters and cross beams, and we built benches,
Yeah.
and put and the what I call it Lunenburg fishermen's exhibition was on in Lunenburg.
Okay.
We put flyers all over the place.
Yeah.
Tyler and Charlotte was coming, see.
Yeah.
She would. And so, and John, he'd been in the Merchant Navy for 9 years, and he was an exercise program. And his parent had been in check, and he'd talk about cooking. And he must have been his money, because it wasn't my money. And so anyway, we got that building, and after we got it all set, and we found that somebody had been murdered in that house.
Really?
And there was a stigma attached to it. We got up to 60. I mean, that was the highest number we got in that building. And some of them were Trinitarians from down the churches down the South Shore ways, you know.
Yeah.
And I could elaborate. I'm just kind of hitting the high spots here.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, one night I did this song service, and of course Nala, she played piano, and then next was John Kladowitz. We had street meetings. Actually, the police had to direct the traffic.
Yeah.
They came from New Germany. It's out down there.
Okay.
And that's place, and of course then there was no shopping malls. Everything was downtown, like it used to be in
Right.
Sussex.
Yeah.
The business was downtown, and we had the corner there, and I preached in the street services there. And so anyway, she preached, and I won't go into all the detail, but anyway, we slept on the floor after the house.
Yeah.
So, and we put the drawers out for the armchair, and Johnny would put, and he wouldn't let me leave any food, and I put on the weight, and we'd go walk every night after we'd walk, and we'd chin myself, and I couldn't hardly get my clothes on. I wasn't getting muscle, and because he had done the Merchant Navy, you know, all these programs.
Yeah.
Well, eventually, down Nala, there's all kinds of. I'm just hitting the highlights.
Yeah.
She somehow wasn't successful.
Yeah.
You know, we couldn't get us started, you know. And one night after church, this is really interesting. I put that in my story. We were outside. I still remember that comes to me vision. It was on the side of the street or the road, whatever. And these people, and we were talking. They said, "We're Anglicans with a Baptist leg."
Yeah.
And they said, "What Baptist? Well, we're Anglican, but we don't believe in dancing." See, and then in that area, the Baptists didn't go to dances.
Okay.
So we're Anglican with a Baptist leg.
Yeah.
But anyway, so eventually, Johnny had to go back to New York.
Yeah.
And Nala and Charlotte, of course, Nala, she was powerful at Angela, but she didn't get anything stirred there. You know?
No.
And so, but they had some people coming there. And so they had here I landed there, and I could see Cecil McKillop's wife's brother, Steve's fellow. He worked he was there. He was the only, but he wasn't pretty rare in the church. But eventually, after this place closed down, I had people coming. We eventually had the meeting come out into the living room. And the lady on the piano, she was painted up, and she was early, but she was playing the piano for me.
Yeah.
And I tried to get work there, but it was a kind of a place where in the wintertime everything was shut down, see?
Oh,
and I couldn't get any work. And I wrote to Brother McConaughey. He was the Home Missions Director.
Yeah.
And he published the district paper, too,
Okay.
at that time.
Yeah.
And so I wrote him a letter, and I didn't plan it to be in the paper. But I said, what we need down here is grit, grace, and greenbacks.
Yeah.
And, of course, and there was no money at all in the Home Mission Department. There was no money at all.
Yeah.
Nothing at all. Here I was,
Yeah.
sitting just kind of sponging on this Steve's fellow, you know. And there was one big house there. We thought about getting it and taking the petition out. Here's an auditorium. And I had a few people coming, too, really.
Yeah.
If I told John Min a different time, I said, if it had been you, you would have still been there, you know. But here I was, and I said, well, the sister Nala, she didn't get anybody to the altar.
No.
And I didn't have that much confidence myself.
Yeah.
But I had some of these people I was connected with in the Trinitarian churches, and some people
Yeah.
coming. And I don't remember what I was preaching to this day. Anyway, I had to hold up, you know.
Yeah.
In those days, everything you owned was in a little suitcase.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was the words Dad bought me when I went to Bible school, club bag. Everything I owned.
Yeah.
And the asbestos place to spare in the end of it.
Yeah.
So anyway, I hitchhiked. I landed in the Stewiacke, and they were putting the shingles on the first little new church.
Okay.
They started in 53. This was down 52. This was 53, the fall. I helped them put the shingles on, and I hitchhiked back to New Brunswick.
Okay.
And then I landed at Dad's, and Brother Jake's, somehow, I don't know what the connection was, he was going to, did I tell you this? He was going to preach from John Abbott in the church in Toronto.
Okay.
Main church, what do they call the church? Anyway, he was going to preach for 2 weeks up there. That's what they used to do then.
Yeah.
They had 2 weeks campaigns always.
Yeah.
And so he wanted me to take his service in Fredericton, which was the biggest church in there.
Yeah.
And of course, Sister Jakes had heard me preach that one at Ripples. And anyway, I was there and took the services for him.
Yeah.
He told me he had access to his books. One book was a Roman Catholic book, but a real good sermon though.
Yeah.
And the place where his little study was cold as can be, and he might have had room up in his bedroom. I don't know.
Yeah.
But anyway, so he came back. I baptized a lady, and I remember one night. Then they come all to the churches. Quite a few people there. I don't know how many. Anyway, and they directed him to the prayer room.
Yeah.
And so they were down. And one fellow, he got rolling on the floor.
Yeah.
And this fellow looked down. He said, "Oh my goodness!" I thought to myself, "Boy, maybe I let her go too far here.
Yeah.
Maybe she's getting out of hand. What did Brother Jakes think of me?"
Yeah.
Because I knew this district. I knew what Brother Rolston's attitude towards demonstration was.
Yeah.
And I know what Brother Jakes's was too.
Yeah.
And Sam Steed. I knew all this district. How some of them, whatever.
Yeah.
But anyway, so Brother Jakes came back, and so I was in the house there. And so I would make a long story short. Just maybe a day or two. I said, "Brother Jakes, and I don't want to stay around if you don't. You're back here." And so I said, "Well, they need a church. They need a pastor out in Harvey Station."
Yeah.
Brother the priest said, "Make a long story. That's again, with all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
But he had been coming over from Waterloo, and
Okay.
he wanted to give it up. And so and Milford Stairs. He had retired as quite a young preacher actually. And his wife, I realized that she was only in the middle 40s, and he was 13 or 14 older than her. But they stopped pastoring, moved back and bought some property there in Marysville where they lived until he died. Anyway, Milford, they had him kind of take the service on it, but they didn't have a pastor. So Brother Jakes took me out, and make a long story short, I became the pastor.
Yeah.
And they brought me. I had a local license. I was pastoring in Bath from June until January or December. And Brother Wynn Stairs came along. He said, "Have you got your license? Preach?" I said, "No. Do you think a fellow needs one?" And I'd preached over in Mars Hill it was a Trinitarian church
In Maine.
in Maine.
Yeah.
But there was a fellowship they called it the Full Gospel Ministerial Fellowship, and there was Trinitarians in Jesus' name together.
Oh, okay.
And they had an agreement, actually. Nowadays, young fellows wouldn't hardly believe this.
Yeah.
But anyway, I had preached there in youth service. And they gave me this application. It wasn't an organization.
No.
They gave me this application because some of went on the board of that, where there was Trinitarians and some of our Jesus' name men from New Brunswick was on the board too, up until that time. So they gave me the application. So I was by the stairs. I said, "I've got this application for that." He said, "No." He said, he became headquarters, Jesus' name strong.
Yeah.
See, and so he said, I'm leaving that now. So he said, no. So he said, made me the application. So in January of 1951, I got my local license.
Oh, okay.
And I was the pastor myself,
Yeah. And that was with UPC.
And then when I went to Harvey Station, I had pastored. Of course, I went to St. John to work, and then in Nova Scotia, and here I was back. And so anyway, 54, and this was February the 10th.
Yeah.
1954. I think whether it was a Sunday or whether it was the day I moved there, I can't remember. I know my father-in-law, he brought a little bit of furniture I had in St. John up in the back of a truck belonged to Shaw's brick plant in Chipman, where he worked.
Yeah.
Anyway, so they approached me. They approached me about getting a general license.
Okay.
And so I went. There was an old preacher on the ward, and of course, they said, "What are you doing?" And I said, "Well, oh, he said, boy, as if I was jumping all over the country.
Yeah.
I wasn't very steadfast,
Yeah.
And they started to say, well, I'm pastoring Harvey Station. But anyway, I got my general license anyway.
Yeah.
And then the next year, of course, when Brother Wickens went to Moncton, Brother Post was going to Ceylon, and I was pastoring Harvey, and down at the boat, St. John.
Yeah.
We lived, Brother Paul McDonald was there, and Brother Howard Hatt, and Brother Wickens, I think, and so forth. And Brother Post had just got his visa. He go, and they were all ready. I get pictures of them now.
Yeah.
And so Brother Jakes took Brother Hatt, and they said, Brother Hatt, why don't you take McAdam Church? Because Brother Wickens was going to Moncton, take Brother Post's place, see.
Yeah.
And so we said, Brother Hatt, he was nerved, and he didn't want to pastor anymore. So they turned to me. I was pastoring Harvey, and I had preached in McAdam when Brother Wickens had gone to New York. One time I was preaching in McAdam one Sunday. And so, but anyway, so they turned to me and said, Brother Mary, why don't you take that church? I said, oh, of course, Brother Quincy Stairs was considered to be the number one Bible teacher of this part of the world in our movement.
Okay.
And Brother Wickens says he was no slouch when it come to the pulpit.
Yeah.
He was, he wasn't very loud, but he was very, very gifted.
Yeah.
And so I was very embarrassed, because I was just 23 years old at that
You're just
particular time.
starting.
So 20, anyway, 20. So I'll be 24 by that time, perhaps. But anyway, so I just that. So I went home, and it wasn't just maybe in a week or two, Brother Jakes came out, and he twisted my arm, so to speak.
Yeah.
And so I finally consented. So they took a vote on me in McAdam. I got all but 2 votes, and so, but I more or less I accepted it,
Yeah.
And then I thought, well, no, I'll be leaving. And one fellow there, one of the rich farmers there, he used to drive by, an old rattlecap. He put his money in the bank, apparently. He stopped, and I was out in the front lawn, so he thought I was leaving for money, getting more money.
Yeah.
And so I didn't know what I was going to get, really.
Yeah.
But anyway, we just took for granted that somebody else would be taking Harvey Church.
Yeah.
So I got Brother Jakes out, and in that little business meeting, the folks in Harvey, of course, Dave Cole, like Harold and Ronald and Carol, Dave used to say, I remember down there, oh my God, basement of that old Harvey Church. He said, we just get used to a preacher and then he leaves.
Yeah.
But anyway, in that meeting, they said, why don't you keep on here? So for over 4 more years.
You did both?
I moved to McAdam, and I traveled. And in the summertime, when the McAdam, being a railroad junction, went on daylight time, Harvey Station stayed on old farmer time.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Huh. And so there was a little, and actually, I won't go into all the detail, but all that, the time, most of it, I preached 4 times on Sunday.
Really?
I'd take my wife out, as far as Harold Cole's, like Shirley Lewis's, not Carol Cole, Fred Cole's, and Shirley Lewis's.
Yeah.
And she'd go, then they'd take her, and she'd take care of the service in Harvey, and I'd go back to McAdam and preach.
Yeah.
Now, it wouldn't be different like it is now, but I'd preach, and when I got done preaching McAdam, I'd drive back to Harvey, and they'd be in the midst of a testimony service, or maybe just waiting for me to come.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'd preach the same message, only I'd add to it.
Yeah.
And I'd preach 4 times on Sunday.
Wow, that's a busy Sunday.
And after a while, my voice would get used to it,
Yeah.
Well, then in the wintertime, I'd have to have like Ronnie James, and I even got little books here. That I got when Brother Euless started preaching a little bit. I got him. Remember, I got how much money I paid them, and so forth. But anyway, that was until 19. It was in January of '59. I actually preached my farewell in Harvey because the board from Harvey. They wanted a full-time pastor, so they came and they asked me if I would go back.
Yeah.
Fine.
Yeah.
But if not, they'd like to have a full-time pastor.
Yeah.
So I can still remember that night.
Yeah.
I laid down. I could just like a rock on my heart.
Yeah.
I had to make a decision.
Yeah.
And of course, I had been in Harvey about 5 years, then pastoring, 4 years both.
Back and forth. Yeah.
And so here it was, and so I made a decision to stay in McAdam.
Yeah.
And then Chester Robertson, he was kind of in limbo, and and so he went to Harvey, took
Yeah.
to my place there.
Yeah.
And,
Somebody went.
and then I stayed there, and I built the church in 1958. And well, I make all kinds of stories. But anyway, by 1960, Lloyd Williams was in Fort Fairfield,
Yeah.
and he was going to South Africa as a missionary.
Okay.
And so, of course, through the connection, I suppose, I had him preach in Macadam in 1957. We had it. Well, I mean, at one time he said, I said, I told him, I said, he was pastor of McNair. I said, sometime I'd like to have you come preach for me. So he came.
Yeah.
So we had 2 weeks meetings, and we 17 got the Holy Ghost,
Oh, nice.
and we had a whatever.
Yeah.
And so that was in 57, and some of the new converts come in, and actually some of them, their grandparent was, like the boy that's editor-in-chief now in the headquarters, and Robin Johnson.
Okay.
His mother was coming to church, but his father wasn't. But he came in, and then his parents,
Yeah.
they came into the church there. And so spring came, and they Brother Bickens had built a basement church,
Yeah.
and it was my goodness, so tough. And so anyway, they were bound. We were going to put the stairs up, built the building upstairs, which is still there.
Yeah.
And Independent Baptists have it now, and so they were. I can remember they were all hot,
Yeah.
And I was just young, only 28 years old then.
Yeah.
But anyway, we got the consent, and so away we went. And then so Lloyd was living in the summer of 60 to go to, and so he mentioned me going to Fort Fairfield to take his place.
Yeah.
And so anyway, I remember there was a lady in the church. There was quite a high quality people. Some of them in the Catholic church.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And so this lady, I won't say who she was, but she was, anyway, she was a lay preacher and also a great children's worker and everything. But anyway, and not that I had it in my mind. I had no attitude at all.
Yeah.
But I thought maybe she may have been the one that didn't vote for me.
Okay.
But when the time came when I was saying I was going to leave,
Yeah.
she made a suggestion, which is to me that's not a real good thing to do, have a standing vote,
Okay.
and so I got 100%.
There you go. That's good.
And so here the person that I thought
Yeah.
maybe was the one that didn't vote for me.
Yeah.
She was the one that
Led
was
the-
pushing me to stay.
Yeah. Yeah. That's cool. Always the way it is, eh? It's always the way it is, eh?
So anyway,
Read people.
way we went.
And
that's just the way we went.
yeah.
And then, I called Brother Corcoran here, maybe 2 or 3 years ago. His wife wrote their life story,
Yeah.
and I've got it here. I think it's still here.
Yeah.
And I'd read it before, but I like biography, and
Yeah.
I don't mind reading it over again.
No.
So I'm going to call. He'd moved back to Perth or Andover.
Yeah.
So I said I should call Brother Corcoran because I remember when I preached the first youth convention they had in Ontario in 1956. Al McNally was the Congress president there,
Yeah.
and I was the president here. And so through Nile, actually, anyway, whatever. Anyway, they had me up, and Brother Ellis he had built a new church there in Belleville.
But I just wanted to ask you one more question.
I should have stopped talking. I was going to say when you came, just ask me questions, and then I'll let you go.
Yeah, no, for sure. No. Like this has been awesome. So I was trying to think of a good last question to ask you.
Okay.
Because then I thought I know what to ask you because some of my greatest memories of Harvey Camp, because like you're pastor in Harvey and stuff, so you've been very involved in Harvey Camp and did the food and all that stuff too, amongst other things. But some of my greatest memories of Harvey Camp is you leading song service.
Yeah. That's where I've gone down everywhere. Practically everywhere I go.
Yeah.
People mention that.
Yeah.
And I give Brother Priest the credit one way because they'd say, Brother Priest, they said, "Oh, get Harvey."
Yeah.
So anyway, and I remember one of the leading. This sounds like an ego trip, but it's just true. It was a true story.
Yeah.
Anyway, I had led the song service one night in Harvey Camp.
Yeah.
And this fellow, he was one of the top evangelists in the United States.
Yeah.
One of the top men in the UPC bracket.
Yeah.
And so he said, if I was a young man and starting the ministry, I'd take Brother McNair with me to lead the song service.
Yep.
So, but I to this day, I just did it. That's I just.
Yeah. Yeah.
And those days you didn't. Nowadays it's all programmed.
Yeah, I know.
But then,
Yeah.
like in I remember 67 years ago this summer,
Yeah.
I was pastoring in Bath before I got married,
Yeah.
and Brother Volga was the evangelist at Fairfield. Always had what they call it, Thanksgiving Day convention
Okay.
in Fort Fairfield for years.
Yeah.
And Brother McCluskey, who had built the church there, was the founder and built the new church up in Curry area.
Yeah.
He was there, and Brother Volga was there, and somebody took me up from Macadam. We went up there. I remember Bath,
Yeah.
and so I was sitting like here, and the platform was here up towards, and Brother McCluskey was up there,
Yeah.
and Brother McCluskey had I call it a Chestershire grin, you know.
Yeah.
And he said, "I tell you what," he said, and I was just sitting there. He said, "We're going to have the cleanest man in the house come lead the song service." He just came from Bath. Just came from
Yeah.
Bath.
Yeah. Yeah.
That'd be 67 years ago this summer.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I don't remember it. I just, thank you.
Yeah.
And they don't mention, the reason is I didn't preach much at Harvey Camp. I did preach in youth because I was the youth president for a
Right.
while.
Yeah.
But I
Well,
didn't preach much.
always
But people don't mention my preaching, but they do remember young people.
songs,
Even, quite old people now.
Yeah.
Remember when they were young, when they were children.
Yeah. Yeah.
They remember it. Not,
Yeah. But what I was going to say was that's what I remember. That's one of my greatest memories from Harvey Camp is of you leading song service. Loved it. So what would be your favorite memory from Harvey Camp? What do you
I tell you,
anything from
there
Harvey
was
Camp that kind of jumps out?
there was fires that I guess there was really what you did was it not Roger? I think he was missionary to Australia. I forget his name now. He was up here later on when we had our camp meeting in the Aiken Center. But it was an afternoon service, whether it was a Sunday or not, whatever it was.
Yeah.
I never felt such conviction in all my life.
Yeah.
Now, maybe it was just me, but he had that thing, I'm telling you. But yet it came 4 o'clock time for the supper hour.
Yeah.
And if I could say that's one, and then one at the new Harvey camp,
Yeah.
there was a Brother Shoemake.
Okay. Yeah.
He was here, he preached.
Yeah.
And one night it was the same thing. And there was a fellow that just sat down. I don't do these. Some people pressure things.
Yeah.
But I'm not very spiritual in that respect.
Yeah.
But I felt so strong.
Yeah.
I can still go back and put my hand on that fellow's back.
Yeah.
And he hadn't been responsive.
Yeah.
But when I tell you, he went to the altar.
Yeah.
And those are two things
Yeah.
that, in my own personal impression.
Yeah.
Of course, there are other kind of scandalous things.
Yeah. No doubt.
I remember you remember the white boy that that pastored in Harcourt from Shipman.
Oh yes.
Mark?
Yeah.
Yeah, he was just a young fella. And Brother Mills, he was on the patrol, trying to quiet the boys down over the dining hall.
Yeah.
And so he had me with him.
Yeah.
So they were making a noise. So we went up. I don't know, it was 10 o'clock or 11, whatever. And so this Mark, he was on the top bunk there.
Yeah.
And of course, it was just about ready to put him off the campground.
Yeah.
And he looked at me. He said, "Brother McNair, you know me?"
Yeah.
I said, "Yes, I know you, but I can't name you." I remember that. He thought, since I knew him, that I'd get him off,
Yeah.
Well, he didn't get expelled, but
Yeah.
I remember that.
Yeah. He was trying. Eh?
And I could tell you other kinds of other stories, man.
Oh yeah. There's.
But those two, as far as the spiritual aspect of it, those two meetings, all those years,
Yeah.
I mean, they had some mighty preaching too.
Oh yeah.
But I mean,
Yeah.
I guess maybe it's just, I don't know. I'm not saying a soul mating, but there's a certain type of personality that responds to certain things.
Yeah. Yeah.
I like when it comes as far as eating and singing. There are certain choruses or certain hymns that relate to a certain atmosphere.
Yep. Absolutely. Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah. For sure.
I remember once or twice in the pastoring when we began to sing with the blood.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness! Of course, I've said anything that's fire of the Holy Ghost, if it's not built upon the sacrifice of the blood, it's wildflower.
That's right.
I said that. I said to these from pulpit, sometimes you're quite radical, and maybe people don't take you serious.
Yeah.
But to me, if it's just emotionalism, if it's just that, if it's not based upon the foundation of the blood.
That's right.
Like I remember saying to my dad when Brother Post came in 48, I said, we're right back to the original, that's Acts 2:38.
Yeah.
But I said, oh no, there wouldn't have been Acts, there wouldn't have been Calvary.
No, that's right. That's right. Yeah.
Calvary precipitated Pentecost.
Yeah.
But there had been no Pentecost, there wasn't a Calvary.
No.
See, the same as like when it comes to the Passover in Egypt, to Sinai, the law, 50 days.
Yeah. Yeah. After the Passover.
Huh?
Yeah.
See, it was on the basis of, because Jesus was, Peter's message the day of Pentecost.
Yeah.
He has shed forth this. He made atonement. He went into the sanctuary in heaven.
Yeah.
And made atonement. That's what you now see and hear.
Yeah.
It's because Jesus, a sacrifice was accepted.
That's right.
The great atonement, justification.
Yeah. Yeah.
Huh?
Oh.
I remember when they put in Brother Russell from up in Grand Rapids, teaching soteriology. Bob's,
Yeah.
well, that's getting up in pretty old seminary talk. So I wrote it down. It has to do with redemptive doctrines: justification, sanctification, atonement, and glorification.
Yeah.
That's the part of that's what it is, soteriology.
Oh, okay.
And I thought, we're coming up. We're getting into we're in the sanctuary. Instead of in the church, we're in the sanctuaries.
Yeah.
And we're in the, what do they call it, the foyer,
Yeah.
instead of the entryway.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And I oh my goodness, my observation of things.
Yeah.
I let you go, brother. Anyway, thanks for coming. And forgive me for rambling. I get talking like Jonathan sometimes calls me. First thing I like, a telephone bill. Of course, I'm on a yak program, only 5 cents a minute.
Yeah.
But I said, man, 50.
Exactly.
And like when I was in a certain situation, and the young doctor said, do you always talk that fast? And I've got the interview that Brother Lewis had, Brother Brewer, when on me, Brother Lewis interviewed me.
Okay.
And I was looking at it last night just in case you want to. Anyway, but Lewis, he spoke very distinctly, but I talked quite fast, and some of it I couldn't even get what I'm saying myself. I saw myself acting and putting my line. But I talk fast, and somebody,
That'd be good. I've never heard of that interview. That'd be good to hear.
Yeah. But some of it you can hear. But Brother Lewis, Brother Brewer, 2009, I think it was.
Okay.
In the prayer room down here.
Yeah.
It's
yeah.
Anyway.
No, thank you very much for doing this. Like, it's been.
Oh man,
I love the stories.
And that's like I say, it's like now when I preach now, I just preach outlines now, pretty near.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I just hit the high points actually, if you call them high points. Forgive me for predominating and for talking so much. And thank you for bringing me back on the rail. Did I get back on the rail last time or not?
Oh yeah, no, yeah, we got her, yeah. I know. It's funny because when I was in St. Stephen, I can remember, and that's the first time that I had got to know you a bit more, and actually got to spend time with you and stuff. And man, I can remember it's been something that has impacted me, like in my walk with God. It really has changed a lot of things in my life. That I can remember coming to the church, and every day I would see you there. If the weather, if it was nice outside, I'd be coming in and you'd be walking in the parking lot and just praying and walking and praying. And if it was raining outside, you'd be inside through the church walking and praying. I can remember just because I was quite young at the time too, and I can remember being so impacted by that, just like thinking, God, like that's it's such a vital thing, that we ain't gonna make it without that for sure.
Well, Brother McKean, of course, he had me down because I preached for his Bible school graduation. I suppose it was his choice, like the second graduation.
Yeah.
And 58 was the first one. 59. Okay. I still got the manuscript.
Yeah.
Actually, when I was writing my story, which if it had continued, I was going to include that
Yeah.
in my story.
Yeah.
I got the story there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, whatever.
Yeah.
Mother, every once in a while, Brother Vincent found me to write, more.
Yeah.
But of course, he stopped being the editor, and therefore the other editors,
Then-
apparently, I suppose,
Yeah.
he really had his own idea what
Doing other
stuff to
things.
put in.
Yeah. Well, man, if we.
And of course, I know of some old preachers, they're it's in oblivion,
Yeah.
So now I used to go for years while our Bible school I
Yeah.
taught and was there and different on the board.
Yeah.
But now, I gotta say, they like, who was that old fellow anyhow?
Yeah.
Did you ever hear tell of Harvey McNair?
Yeah.
No. Well, he was around the country.
Yeah, he was around here. Yeah.
One time a few years ago.
Yeah.
And you couldn't help. Like I say, there's some of the preachers now, they're old and retired, and some of them are dead.
Yeah.
And they started preaching after me. And
Yeah.
I of course, analyze it. They have no, like yourself, you have no idea.
Nope.
There's no possibility.
No.
And anybody would be wrong to think that you would know.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And what I'm saying, all you're hearing it. But as far as, the atmosphere of this district,
Yeah.
and the things that have gone on, I mean, only you know just where you come in.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We all just know our own little.
Yeah,
private stuff, and that's-
and you wouldn't be expected to know any different.
No.
It's like Brother Corcoran. That's what I was going to.
Okay.
I
Yes,
mention.
that's right.
Yeah,
That's
that's
right.
right.
Brother Corcoran.
Before I froze,
Yeah.
finally I got him to the phone, and I had said it whether I said it publicly or anyway he founded the church more or less, and that's right. It was in Millville
Okay.
that he started to come in the ministry, not because I preached there,
Yeah.
but the year I preached. From then on, he went into the ministry.
Yeah.
And so he said, Brother, and then eventually, as you know, more or less the foundation of the church in Pakistan.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And so he said, Brother, that's just like a dream.
Yeah.
And I said, I'm glad a man of your stature said, because what I've come nothing compared to him. And I said, I'm glad a man of yours, if I don't mind telling myself that what I had was a dream.
Yeah.
Now, in his case, it wasn't a dream when it was happening.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it wasn't a dream when I was in it.
No.
But it's a dream. It's just look back. It doesn't. In other words, I'm real.
Yeah. Yeah. You wonder, eh? How...
Yeah. I just anyway, whatever it is.
Time just keeps going by.
It's just like the Bible does say that far as that goes.
Yeah.
One place it mentions fog. I think it mentions fog.
Yeah, as a vapor.
Yeah, and a vapor. In one translation, it's fog,
Yeah. Yeah.
like a vapor.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my! Your wife,
Yeah. No, I was watching. I was making sure that she was.
I know. I've contradicted myself because I'm reading there in Proverbs. You're not supposed to talk too much.
Yeah.
Keep your mouth shut, and the people might even think you're wise.
Yeah.
And if you open your mouth.
Yeah. Thought a fool.
Forgive me.
Yeah. No.
Pray for me. I guess that's all I'm saying.
Well, I hope that you enjoyed that. I had a great time with Brother McNair and just sitting there in his living room doing this interview with him. Sadly, this was the last, when I did this interview, was the last chance that I had to see Brother McNair, and he passed away a few years afterwards. But I know that someday I'm going to get to see him again, and that we're going to get to worship God together. And I pray that this has blessed you, maybe taken you down memory lane, maybe shared some things with you that you didn't know about, and some things that have happened in the past. But to know that the same apostolic message and truth that those elders preached is the same one that we're preaching today. We can trace it all the way back to Acts 2 with Peter when he began to preach this apostolic message that Jesus had given to him. And so we're so glad to be able to share this with you. We want to encourage you, tell someone about Jesus and share this apostolic message and to tell the world about him. Amen. God bless you guys. I hope that you have a good day.